I'm just a perfectly ordinary intern who only wants to be a couch potato that clocks in right on time and leaves the moment work ends. But who would have thought that one day the whole company would start spreading rumors that I'm the keptman of Willow, the IC CEO, and the reason. Some employee happened to see me get into the CEO's private car. I swear on my conscience and the heavens above, she was just being kind and gave me a ride home because I couldn't get a cab during a typhoon. Just as I was storming off, ready to hunt down the bastard spreading these rumors, the Queen herself descended upon our department. Under the stunned, jaw-dropped gazes of everyone present, she actually straightened my collar with her own hands and said in a doting tone, "Didn't I tell you to sleep in a little longer at home?" I was speechless. At this point, even jumping into the Pacific Ocean wouldn't be enough to clear my name. Chapter 1. Have you heard? That new intern at our company, George, is the kept boy toy of President Liu. Holy crap, seriously, which President Liu? That President Liu, the walking iceberg, Willow Liu, who can freeze everything within a 10-mile radius just by existing. Duh. Is there a second President Liu in this company? I saw it with my own eyes. Yesterday her Maserati was parked right at the front entrance, and that kid George strolled right into the car. The way he moved, smooth as hell, like he was getting into his own ride. Jesus, that's huge news. No wonder something always felt off about him. Shows up exactly on time every day. Bolts first thing after work, and the reports he submits are pure garbage. Turns out he's got someone powerful backing him. Backing him, more like covering him, and with a top-tier VIP seat. Damn it, this world is so unfair. I busted my ass graduating from an elite top-tier university, working myself to death, and I'm still worse off than a pretty face who can lie flat and live off a woman. Monday morning, Orange Group. I swiped my card and stumbled into the office area, still half asleep, and immediately felt that something was off. The entire department, dozens of people, snapped their gazes onto me at once, like searchlights locking onto a target. Those looks were as complicated as a kaleidoscope. There was disdain, jealousy, curiosity, anger, and in the eyes of a few female co-workers, a glint of gossip-hungry wolf light, like they wanted to strip me naked on the spot and study my anatomical structure. I froze. What the hell was going on? Did I get caught being late? But it was still 3 minutes to 9. Did I crash the servers again? No way. I hadn't messed around last night. I scratched my slightly messy hair and walked toward my desk with a completely blank expression. I'd barely sat down, my seat not even warm yet, when the guy next to me, David, slid over on his wheeled chair like a fly catching a scent. He leaned in, lowering his voice, wearing a mix of sleazy and excited excitement. "George, damn, you're something else. Playing it cool this whole time." David waggled his eyebrows and nudged me with his elbow. "Come on, be honest with me. How did you take down our iceberg queen? Got some secret technique? Share it, man. I'll light you a cigarette." I was totally lost. "What are you talking about? What iceberg queen? Speak human." Still pretending, David put on a "yeah, I know exactly what's going on" face and jerked his chin toward the top floor executive office. "President Liu, the whole company's buzzing. They say you're the one she's keeping, you know, her boy toy, PFF." The mouthful of soy milk I'd just taken shot straight out and sprayed all over David's face. Cough, cough, I choked so hard it shook the heavens, my face turning bright red. "What the hell are you saying? Who? Willow? Me? A kept boy toy?" I felt like I'd just heard the funniest joke of the century. Who was Willow Liu? The founder of Orange Group, a business legend who built a $100 billion empire at just 27, a woman whose name alone gave her competitors nightmares, and the company's universally acknowledged human air conditioner, industrial-grade cooling power. They said no one dared to look up during her meetings. Once her aura switched on, people would keep shaking for the rest of the day. And me? I was just a painfully ordinary intern. My biggest dream was clocking out on time every day, going home to play video games, with my ultimate life goal being a happy couch potato. The two of us, one was Mount Everest, the other the Mariana Trench. No possible overlap. And now people were saying I was her kept boy toy. At least make your rumors obey basic logic. "David, have you been slacking off at work and rotting your brain on novels?" I snapped, grabbing a tissue to wipe my mouth. "You actually believe this crap?" David wiped the soy milk off his face, suddenly anxious. "How could I not? Someone saw you get into President Liu's car with their own eyes. There are photos, already going viral." As he spoke, he pulled out his phone and opened a massive company group chat with several hundred people in it. A high-definition photo filled the screen. Under the cover of night, beside a sleek, streamlined Maserati, a man was pulling open the car door, about to get into the passenger seat. It was only a side profile, but I recognized it instantly. That damn guy was me. Below the photo, the chat history had already hit 999 plus messages. Confirmed. That's George from the tech department. No wonder. I was wondering why he dared to slack off every day, Turns out he'd already pleased the boss. Living off a woman like that, man's got some strong teeth. Pure envy, jealousy, and hatred. Guys, stop being salty. With a face like that, he really does have what it takes to be a kept man. That side profile, absolutely insane. I stared at the photo, my brain buzzing, and everything suddenly clicked. Last night, Sunday evening, I'd stayed late fixing bugs. A typhoon was raging when I got off work, and I couldn't get a cab no matter how hard I tried. Just as I was about to run through the rain to the subway station, a Maserati pulled up in front of me. The window rolled down, revealing a cold, breathtakingly beautiful face. It was Willow, the elusive president of our company. Get in. Her tone back then was icy, completely devoid of emotion. I was just a bottom-tier intern. How could I possibly refuse the boss's kindness? Trembling all over, I got into the car. The entire ride, neither of us said a single word. The pressure inside the car was terrifying. I didn't even dare breathe too loudly. I felt like if I inhaled one extra breath, I'd be frozen into an ice sculpture on the spot. And yet, from this one completely innocent case of the boss giving an employee a ride on the way, it somehow turned into ironclad proof of being kept. The imagination of this generation of employees was way too wild. Just as I was about to start typing in the group chat to clear things up, the department manager's roar burst out of his office. George, get your ass in here, now. My heart skipped a beat. I was screwed. The rumors had reached management. I braced myself and walked into the office, only to see the manager glaring at me with a look of furious disappointment. He slammed a document onto the desk with a loud bang. Take a look at this trash you submitted. Errors everywhere. No logical flow whatsoever. I told you to turn it in yesterday, and you drag it out till now. George, if you don't want this job, then get the hell out now. Don't think that just because. The manager suddenly stopped mid-sentence. His gaze went past my shoulder, toward the doorway. The anger on his face froze instantly, replaced by sheer shock and panic. The office fell into deathly silence. Curious, I turned around. At the door stood a tall, cold figure, perfectly still. A sharply tailored black suit set her off like the proudest queen of the night. It was Willow. Behind her stood her personal assistant, along with several senior executives. The room was so quiet you could hear a pin drop. Willow's eyes swept calmly over everyone in the office. Finally, they settled on me. Under the stunned, jaw-dropping stares of everyone present, she strode forward. Her high heels struck the floor with crisp tap sounds as she walked straight up to me. Then, she did something the entire company would remember for the rest of their lives. She reached out with her slender hand and, naturally, straightened my slightly disheveled collar. Her voice was still cool and composed, yet carried an unmistakable hint of intimacy. Why are you up so early? Didn't I tell you to sleep in at home a bit longer? The entire office floor was like it had just been hit by a nuclear bomb. Every single brain went completely blank. Chapter 2, Boom. If everything before this had still counted as rumors, then that single action and sentence from Willow was the equivalent of stamping my kept boy toy status with an officially certified steel seal in front of the entire company. The department manager's mouth dropped so wide an egg could have fit inside, his eyeballs practically popping out. He looked at Willow Lou, then at me. The panic on his face instantly transformed into obsequious flattery, his expression changing faster than flipping a book. President Lou, you're here. Willow didn't even glance at him. Her gaze never left me. Those eyes, deep and cold like a frozen abyss, held emotions too complicated to read. I was completely petrified. I could feel her fingers, icy cold, trembling ever so slightly. She smoothed my collar gently, yet every hair on my body stood on end. What the hell was this woman trying to do? Did she realize that after pulling something like this, I'd never survive in this company again? No, forget surviving. How was I supposed to lie flat anymore? Who would dare boss me around now? Who would dare dump blame on me? This was basically a direct execution of my couch potato life plan. I opened my mouth to explain, but my throat was so dry no sound came out. In front of Willow's overwhelming aura, any words felt utterly powerless. I've reviewed last night's files. Willow finally withdrew her hand. Her voice returned to its usual icy calm. Though now she was speaking to the department manager. The core algorithm has a fatal flaw. The solution George left behind is the only viable one. Are you saying your entire department is inferior to a single intern? The moment she said that, cold sweat poured down the manager's back. How was he supposed to know that the mess I'd submitted, something that looked like pure scribbles, was actually the solution? He'd assumed I was screwing around and rejected it on the spot. Yes, President Lou, you're absolutely right. It's my fault. I was blind and failed to recognize Mr. Wang's talent. The manager nodded frantically, even changing how he addressed me. Willow let out a cold snort and ignored him. Turning to her special assistant behind her, she said, "Make the announcement. Effective today, George Wong is transferred directly to the president's office as my special assistant. She deliberately stressed the word special. Then she looked at me again, her eyes carrying an unmistakable, non-negotiable command. George, pack your things. Come to the top floor in 5 minutes. With that, she turned and left, surrounded by senior executives, moving like an unstoppable procession. From start to finish, she didn't give anyone time to react. She left behind an entire tech department standing there, utterly disoriented. Once Willow's figure completely disappeared, the office instantly exploded. Holy shit, it's real, it's actually real. Direct transfer to the president's office as a special assistant. That's not a promotion, that's a rocket launch. What special assistant? Looks more like a personal assistant. Damn, an office romance this hardcore. George, no. Assistant Wong, from now on, you're my real big brother. Please cover me. Colleagues who'd been glaring at me moments ago now swarmed around me, faces piled with flattering smiles. The intimacy was so over the top. Anyone would have thought we were long-lost brothers. The department manager even rushed over personally, smiling from ear to ear as he helped me pack. Oh George, look at this whole mess. Just a misunderstanding. All a misunderstanding. My eyes were blinded by lard. Truly failed to see your talent. You're a man of great stature. Please don't stoop to my level. I looked at these people whose faces changed faster than flipping pages and felt utterly speechless. My mind was a tangled mess. What exactly did Willow want? Just because she gave me a ride last night, was this really her way of repaying me? This kind of repayment was way too earth-shattering. I was absolutely certain there was something going on behind all this, and it was definitely not something good. But right now, I had no choice. Under gazes that treated me like the center of the universe, I carried my cardboard box, inside it a mug, a cactus I was on the verge of killing, and a few half-eaten snacks, and stepped into the elevator leading to the top floor president's office. All the way up, whenever someone entered the elevator and saw me, they reacted like they'd seen a ghost, then immediately straightened up and said respectfully, "Good morning, Assistant Wong." I was completely speechless, a socially anxious introvert, dead on the spot. When I reached the top floor, Willow's special assistant was already waiting at the door. She was a sharp-looking woman wearing gold-rimmed glasses, radiating pure competence. "Mr. Wong, this way please. President Liu is waiting for you." Her politeness was almost too much. I followed her into the legendary president's office. Huge, luxurious, empty. An entire wall of floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked most of the city. Willow stood by the window with her back to me, like an emotionless statue. "President Liu," I said, steeling myself. She turned around. Her breathtaking face still wore that eternally frosty expression. She gestured for the assistant to leave. The office door closed, cutting off the outside world completely. "Sit," she said, pointing to the chair across from her desk. I sat down, feeling like a criminal awaiting judgment. Willow walked over and looked down at me. Her gaze was sharp as a blade, as if she could see straight through me, inside and out. She spoke coldly. "Do you know why I did this?" I shook my head honestly. "No. Because I need a shield." Her words were blunt and emotionless. A shield. I was even more confused. Willow took a document from the drawer and tossed it in front of me. It was a contract. A prenuptial agreement. No, reading the title again. It said, Confidential Employment and Role-Playing Agreement. My eyes widened as I skimmed through it. In simple terms, Willow wanted to hire me to play the role of her secret lover, the so-called kept boy toy the outside world was already gossiping about. Duration, 1 year. Compensation, $500,000 per month. During the contract period, I was required to unconditionally cooperate with her at any public occasion, maintain an intimate relationship, and make everyone believe we were a real couple. At the end of the contract, I'd receive an additional $5 million as a breakup fee, and we'd go our separate ways, cleanly. My brain crashed. This was straight out of a novel, wasn't it? Fake dating, contract romance. Why, me? I swallowed hard and asked, "Because you're ordinary enough." Willow replied calmly. "Enough of a couch potato. You have no presence in the company. Like a blank sheet of paper. No one knows your background. You're perfect for camouflage." Her words were brutal, but realistic. "And," she paused, adding coldly, "because last night, you saw something you weren't supposed to see." I froze. Last night? I tried to remember, aside from the suffocating silence in the car, what else had there been? Suddenly, a scene flashed through my mind. When I got out of the car, I'd seen Willow drop a small pill bottle from her pocket. When she picked it up, her face looked paler than usual, and her hand was shaking. I hadn't thought much of it at the time, but now, "You don't ask questions you shouldn't." Willow cut me off, her voice even colder. "All you need to tell me is this: are you signing, or not?" I looked at the contract, then at the woman standing in front of me. Sign it, and I'd be making $500,000 a month, while risking social death at any moment. Don't sign it, and I had no doubt that with her means, I could disappear from this city by tomorrow. Was there really a choice? I'll sign. I picked up the pen and signed my name at the bottom of the agreement. Willow nodded in satisfaction and put the contract away. Good. She walked behind her desk and pressed the intercom. Assistant Chan. Add one more invitation to tonight's gala. Name, George Wong. She hung up and looked at me, issuing the first order of the day. Come to my place at 7 tonight. There are several cars in the garage. Pick one and drive over. I'll send you the address and access code to your phone. And, she paused, scanning me from head to toe with a critical gaze. Change those clothes. Don't embarrass me. Chapter 3. 6:50 p.m. I drove one of the more low-key cars I'd randomly picked from Willow's garage, an Audi A8, and stopped at the entrance of a top-tier luxury villa community I'd previously only seen on TV. The navigation on my phone said, "Destination reached." Staring at the standalone villa in front of me, palace-like, surrounded by an enormous private garden, I felt my worldview take about 100 million points of emotional damage. So this is how rich people live. Plain, unpretentious, and utterly boring. I entered the password Willow had sent me and opened the front door. The motion sensor lights in the foyer turned on automatically. An auntie in a maid's uniform, looking to be in her 40s or 50s, was already waiting there respectfully. "Good evening, Mr. Wong. I'm the housekeeper here. You may call me Isabella." Isabella wore a professional smile, though the intense curiosity in her eyes was impossible to hide. She'd worked here for nearly 10 years, and this was the first time she'd ever seen President Liu bring a man home. And not just any man, but such an ordinary-looking young guy. Hello, Isabella." I nodded awkwardly and changed into the slippers she handed me. "Miss is upstairs changing. She instructed me to take you to the dressing room first." The dressing room. When I followed Isabella into a walk-in closet bigger than my rented apartment, I fell silent once again. All four walls were lined with top-tier men's clothing, suits, dress shirts, casual wear, ties, cufflinks, luxury watches, everything imaginable. And every single item was brand new. The tags were still on. These, I pointed at the clothes, momentarily stunned. They were delivered a few days ago at Mrs. request. Isabella explained with a smile. "The sizes should all be custom tailored to your measurements. Miss said you should choose an outfit for tonight's gala." I got it. This had been planned in advance, which meant that whether I'd gotten soaked in the rain yesterday, or even gotten into her car at all, she'd already had her eye on me. This couch potato had been precisely netted out of the pond. I randomly picked a relatively understated black suit and changed into it. Surprisingly, it fit perfectly. The person in the mirror suddenly looked sharp and polished, his aura upgraded by several levels. I barely recognized myself. Clothes really do make the man. Just as I was adjusting my tie in front of the mirror, the sound of high heels came from behind me. I turned around and froze. Willow had changed out of her cold, rigid suit and into a deep wine red evening gown. The design was bold yet elegant, perfectly outlining her breathtaking curves. Her long hair, usually tied up, now cascaded down her shoulders like a waterfall, less sharp, more irresistibly alluring. A light, refined makeup enhanced her already stunning features to the point where it was almost painful to look at her directly. If daytime Willow was a snow-covered queen of frozen mountains, then the Willow before me now was a mandrake blooming in the dark night, radiating lethal temptation. My heartbeat skipped. I had to admit it. This woman was genuinely beautiful. Willow walked up to me and naturally raised her hand, straightening my slightly crooked tie. Her fingertips brushed my Adam's apple unintentionally. My entire body stiffened. A faint, cool fragrance slipped into my nose, instantly throwing my thoughts into chaos. Not bad. Willow glanced me over and gave a lukewarm, but clearly approving, assessment. "Let's go." She turned and walked out of the dressing room with effortless grace. I took a deep breath, suppressed the strange flutter in my chest, and followed her. Outside the villa, a Rolls-Royce Phantom was already waiting quietly. The driver opened the door, and Willow got in first. I followed her into the car. The door closed, cutting off the outside world. The interior was spacious, but the atmosphere inside was inexplicably tense. Willow had her eyes closed, leaning back against the seat as if resting. Her breathtaking side profile carried a trace of fatigue that was hard to notice unless you looked closely. I didn't dare speak either. I could only watch the night scenery outside the window rush backward. "Remember," Willow finally spoke after a long while, her eyes still closed. "Once we get to the gala, talk less, smile more, and stay close to me. If they ask about our relationship, just say, we're childhood sweethearts." Childhood sweethearts. I almost laughed out loud. That excuse was ridiculously far-fetched. Still, I simply nodded. "Got it. And one more thing." Willow seemed to recall something and opened her eyes. In the dimly lit car, those beautiful eyes were strikingly bright. "No matter what you see or hear later, don't be surprised, and don't interfere. All you need to do is play your role properly. A kept boy toy who only cares about me and is indifferent to everything else. She emphasized that title yet again. A faint sense of unease rose in my chest. Tonight's gala was probably not going to be simple. The car soon pulled into a private club located in one of the most prestigious areas of downtown. Luxury cars lined the entrance, and the place was filled with glittering gowns and tailored suits. The moment I linked arms with Willow and stepped into the brilliantly lit banquet hall, we instantly became the center of attention. Countless gazes shot toward us like arrows, especially toward me. After all, Willow was a famously untouchable iceberg beauty in the business world. Since rising to prominence, she'd never had a single scandal, let alone brought a male companion to an event like this. And today, she not only brought one, but did so in such an intimate manner. Who was this man? The same question surfaced in everyone's mind. I felt like a monkey on display in a zoo, uncomfortable all over. All I could do was follow Willow's instructions, maintain a polite smile, lean slightly toward her, and adopt a subtly protective posture. Willow, on the other hand, seemed completely unfazed, clearly accustomed to being the focus of a crowd. She held my arm and walked straight through the onlookers without sparing them a glance, heading toward the host of the event, Chairman Lin. Happy birthday. A middle-aged man with a protruding belly and thinning hair stepped forward with a wine glass, smiling broadly. Oh my, President Liu honoring us with her presence. This humble place is truly blessed. Chairman Lin's gaze swept over me with a hint of scrutiny. And this gentleman is my boyfriend, George Wang. Willow's introduction was brief, but carried immense weight. The word boyfriend detonated like a bomb in the crowd. A wave of shocked murmurs spread instantly. Chairman Lin froze for a second, then burst into laughter. So this is Mr. Wang. Truly a fine young man. You and President Liu are a perfect match, made for each other. Come, President Liu, Mr. Wang, let me toast you both. The three of us clinked glasses and drank. Just then, an unpleasant voice drifted over from the side. Hey, President Liu's taste really is getting more distinctive. I followed the sound. A young man in a white suit stood nearby, quite handsome, but with a hint of malice lurking in his eyes. He held a wine glass and looked at us with open amusement. Isn't that Makoto, the vice president of Penguin Tech, Orange Group's sworn rival? What's he doing here? Oh, this is going to be good. Everyone knows he chased President Liu for years and got rejected every single time. Whispers rippled through the crowd. I understood instantly. So this was the trouble Willow was meant to face tonight. Chapter 4. Makoto's appearance instantly made the once lively atmosphere of the banquet hall turn subtle and tense. His gaze slithered over me like a venomous snake, filled with undisguised hostility and contempt. President Liu, aren't you going to introduce him? Makoto swirled the wine in his glass, his tone flippant. This gentleman looks unfamiliar. Willow's expression cooled noticeably. She didn't even glance at Makoto. Instead, she turned to me and said softly, George, are you tired? Would you like to go over there and grab something to eat? That tone, that name, so intimate it made everyone around us break out in goosebumps. I froze for a split second. George? This woman really slipped into character fast. I immediately played along, nodding obediently and giving her an indulgent smile. Whatever you say. The interaction between us was nothing short of pouring gasoline on a fire in Makoto's eyes. His face darkened instantly. Willow. Makoto raised his voice several notches. I'm talking to you. Only then did Willow slowly turn her head and look at him, her gaze so cold it was as if she were staring at a corpse. Vice President Ito, I don't believe we have anything to discuss. You. Makoto Ito choked on his words. He took a deep breath, then turned his spear straight toward me. You. Who the hell are you? State your name. Before I could say anything, Willow stepped forward and placed herself squarely in front of me. That small movement was unmistakably protective. Her voice wasn't loud, yet it carried clearly through the entire hall. Makoto, my man is not someone you get to interrogate. One sentence. Absolute dominance. The entire hall fell into dead silence. Everyone was stunned by Willow's forceful stance. This was no longer just introducing a boyfriend. This was a blatant declaration of ownership to the whole world. Makoto's face shifted from green to white, like a palette gone wrong. Being slapped in the face so mercilessly by Willow in front of everyone dealt a devastating blow to his pride. Fine. Very well, your man. Makoto laughed in anger. Willow, you really went all out just to reject me. Where did you even find an actor like this? He pointed at me, sneering. Kid, how much did she pay you to put on this show? I'll pay double. The moment those words left his mouth, the way people looked at me changed, curious, amused, speculative. Honestly, compared to Makoto, rich background, influential family, young and successful, I did look painfully ordinary. Saying I was just a disposable shield Willow picked up to piss him off actually sounded reasonable. I frowned. Even if this was an act, this bastard's mouth was seriously disgusting. I was just about to speak when Willow gently squeezed my hand. A silent signal. Don't say anything. Her lips curved into a cold smile as she looked straight at Makoto and said, word by word, Vice President Ito, do you really believe that every woman in the world should be throwing herself at you? Do you also believe that every relationship can be measured with money? Let me tell you this, my man is someone you will never, ever measure up to. And as for money, she paused, then smiled with pure disdain. His family's wealth might just be a little more than your entire Ito family combined. Boom. Another nuclear-level bomb dropped. Everyone was stunned. So this George wasn't just Willow's boyfriend, he was also a hidden ultra-wealthy heir. This plot was getting way too surreal. Makoto stared in disbelief. Impossible. I've investigated, there is no major family in our circle with the surname Wong. That just means you're ignorant, Willow replied calmly, her tone dripping with contempt. She grabbed my hand and turned to leave. Stop right there. Makoto had clearly lost his rationality. He lunged forward and actually tried to reach out and grab Willow. My gaze turned cold in an instant, almost purely on instinct. Just as Makoto's hand was about to touch Willow, I moved. My motion wasn't fast, if anything. It looked almost casual. I simply raised my hand and precisely caught Makoto's wrist. Then, with a light twist, crack! A crisp sound of bones dislocating rang out across the banquet hall, followed by Makoto's pig slaughter-like scream. Ah, my hand. My hand's broken. Makoto's face went deathly pale as cold sweat poured down. He clutched his wrist and rolled on the floor, howling in agony. The entire hall froze. No one had expected that I, the seemingly mild-mannered, smiling kept boy toy, would strike so ruthlessly. One move, and Makoto lost a hand. I flicked my wrist as if I'd just touched something filthy. Looking down at the wailing Makoto, my eyes were ice cold. My wife's hand. Is that something you're qualified to touch? That tone, that posture. I looked even more arrogant than Willow. Willow herself was stunned. She clearly hadn't expected me to step in so suddenly, let alone move this cleanly. As she stared at George's upright, steady back, something unfamiliar flashed through her normally cold eyes. For the very first time, Chairman Lin, along with a group of security guards, rushed over in a panic. Young Master Ito, are you all right? Quick, call an ambulance. The scene descended into chaos. Willow, however, remained unnervingly calm. She walked up beside me and naturally looped her arm through mine, as if nothing at all had happened. Let's go. Under the stunned, fearful, and curious gazes of everyone present, the two of us simply walked out of the banquet hall, bold and unhurried, leaving behind a mess of shattered nerves, and a Makoto with a broken hand. Once inside the car, the atmosphere became even stranger than on the way there. I rubbed my wrist, feeling a twinge of regret. That had been impulsive, mainly because that bastard Makoto had been asking for it. I was a couch potato by nature. What I hated most in life was trouble, and now, I'd crippled the vice president of Penguin Tech. Trouble was guaranteed to follow. We spoke at the same time, then both stopped. You go first, I said. Willow looked at me, stayed silent for a moment, then finally asked, you've trained before? Yeah, learned Sanda for a few years, I replied casually, which was, of course, complete nonsense. I'd never trained in Sanda. All my skills came from sparring against various AI combat masters in virtual worlds. This was actually the first time I'd ever fought a real person. Didn't expect it to work this well. What you did just now, Willow's tone softened slightly, was well done. Huh. I was genuinely surprised. Wasn't she supposed to blame me for causing trouble? Makoto is my company's biggest competitor, and the person I despise the most, Willow said flatly, gazing out the window. What you did tonight helped me vent a lot of long-held anger. However, she continued, changing tone, you've also completely offended him. He won't let this go. So what do we do? I asked, a bit uneasy. Relax. Willow turned to look at me, a glint of something called control flashing in her eyes. As long as I'm here, he can't touch you. For some reason, seeing her so confident actually calmed my unsettled heart. This woman, cold as she was, seemed surprisingly reliable. Chapter 5. The very next day, the news that I had crippled one of Makoto's hands spread through the entire business district as if it had grown wings. Naturally, it also swept through the Orange Group internally. Now, the way people in the company looked at me had completely changed, from the previous mix of envy and jealousy to outright awe. This wasn't some pretty boy kept around for show. This was a damn ferocious dragon crossing the river. Good-looking, able to fight, and most importantly, protected by an ice-cold female CEO. This was practically the standard setup of a novel's male protagonist. As for how I felt about it, I had only one reaction, pure exhaustion. All I wanted was to be a couch potato. So why was that so hard? I was now officially the CEO's special assistant. My office was right outside Willow's office, a huge desk, and only me sitting there. Every day, My job consisted of accompanying Willow to meetings, reviewing documents, and drinking coffee. I was so idle I was practically about to grow fur. That afternoon, Willow was in her office attending a video conference about an extremely important overseas project. With nothing better to do, I sat outside using my own laptop, casually writing small programs for fun. Suddenly, Willow's executive assistant, Lisa, hurried out of the office, her face full of panic. "Assistant Wong, this is bad." "What's wrong?" I looked up. "Penguin Tech somehow got hold of our project's core data during the meeting. They're targeting us at every turn." "President Liu is in a very passive position right now," Lisa said, sweating profusely from anxiety. Orange Group and Penguin Tech had always been competing for this project. Now that the opponent knew our core data, it was like playing cards with your hand completely exposed. How were we supposed to play? If this project was snatched away by Penguin, the blow to Orange Group would be devastating. I frowned. Penguin Tech again, Makoto again. That bastard, his hand was broken and he still wouldn't behave, resorting to dirty tricks. I glanced at the tightly shut door of the CEO's office and could easily imagine the immense pressure Willow was facing inside. "Lisa, don't panic." I stood up and said, "Send me all the materials related to this project, as well as all publicly available information on Penguin Tech." What do you need those for?" Lisa froze. "Don't ask, just do it." My tone left no room for discussion. Though confused, Lisa quickly sent a pile of encrypted files to my email. I sat back down in front of my computer, and my fingers began flying across the keyboard. My gaze grew intensely focused. That lazy couch potato version of me vanished without a trace. In its place was a sharp, confident presence, as if everything was under my control. If a top-tier programmer had been there at that moment, they would have been utterly stunned, because the speed at which I was typing code had already surpassed human limits. Lines of complex code poured down the screen like a waterfall. I wasn't just reviewing information, I was breaking in. The Orange Group's firewall was rock solid. That was before I showed up. Now, the entire company network might as well have been wide open in front of me. Very quickly, I traced an internal IP address that, late at night 3 days ago, had transmitted a massive amount of encrypted files to an overseas server, and that IP address pointed straight to the office of Vice President Stan Still. So there really was an insider. I sneered, my fingers never stopping, following the trail directly into Penguin Tech servers. To everyone else, Penguin Tech servers were a dragon's lair and a tiger's den. To me, they were nothing more than a slightly more sophisticated backyard. In less than 10 minutes, everything Penguin Tech had accumulated since its founding, internal documents, financial statements, project secrets, and even the private dirt on Makoto and his old men, was laid bare on my computer screen. Found it. The corner of my mouth curled into a cold arc. I discovered that, in order to secure this overseas project, Penguin Tech had siphoned off massive amounts of company funds to make an illegal leveraged investment. Right now, that investment was balanced on an extremely fragile tipping point. All it would take was a tiny straw to make the whole thing collapse. And what I was holding in my hands wasn't just one straw, it was an entire bundle, enough to crush the camel outright. I picked up the internal phone on the desk and directly called Willow, who was still in the meeting. "It's me." On the other end, her voice sounded tired and confused. "George, I'm in a meeting." "What is it?" "Long story short," I said rapidly, "open your pricing document right now. In the licensing fee for the third core technology, add a decimal point." "What?" Willow froze. "What are you talking about? That would make our quote 10 times higher than Penguin's." "That's impossible. Trust me." I said only those 2 words. My tone was calm, but carried an irresistible authority. Silence fell on the other end of the line. A full 30 seconds later, she finally spoke. "All right." I hung up and leaned back in my chair, letting out a long breath. The rest was up to Willow. Inside the CEO's office, the video conference continued. Penguin Tech's representatives were aggressive, tearing Orange Group's proposal to shreds and dismissing it as worthless. Makoto wasn't present, but he was surely smirking smugly behind the screen. Orange Group's executives all wore grim expressions, their morale sinking fast. Everyone believed this loss was inevitable. Only Willow, after taking my call, suddenly became calm. She glanced at the pricing document on her computer. Her slender fingers lightly tapped the keyboard. A single decimal point. She sent out the revised final quote. The moment Penguin saw Orange Group's offer, the entire group burst out laughing. "Ha ha ha ha. President Liu, have you lost your mind? At this price, are you here to do charity? Looks like Orange Group really is finished. Even their quotes are wrong now." The executives on Orange's side were completely dumbfounded as well. "President Liu, you." Willow raised her hand, stopping them. She looked at the smug faces on the screen, and for the first time, a truly icy smile appeared at the corner of her lips. "Gentlemen," her voice cut clearly through the microphone, "you might want to take a look at Penguin Tech's stock price right now. The people on Penguin's side froze, instinctively opening their stock apps. One glance, and their smiles solidified. On the screen, the green line representing Penguin Tech's stock price was plunging straight down at a terrifying angle, 90 degrees. A cliff-like free fall. In less than a minute, it hit the daily limit down. That's impossible. This can't be happening. A Penguin representative let out a desperate scream. At the same time, their phones began ringing like mad. All calls, from the company. It's over. It's all over. Our leverage, it's blown up. The company is bankrupt. The conference room fell into dead silence. Only the desperate wails from Penguin's side echoed through the speakers. Willow slowly stood up, looking down at the devastated, hollow-eyed faces on the screen. Now, she said softly, yet like a sledgehammer smashing into every heart. Does anyone still think there's something wrong with my quote? Chapter 6. Orange Group 1. In a way no one could understand, it secured that overseas project worth tens of billions. Even more shocking was the fact that our longtime rival, Penguin Tech, saw its stock collapse that very afternoon. Its cash flow snapped, and the company declared bankruptcy on the spot. A commercial empire collapsed in less than an hour. The news detonated across the entire business world like a nuclear bomb. Everyone wanted to know what had happened. Inside Orange Group, however, all the executives who had participated in that video conference were now looking at Willow with something beyond awe. It was fear. In their eyes, this beautiful CEO was nothing short of a demon. With a smile and a few words, entire fleets were reduced to ashes. Terrifying. Only Willow herself knew that this had very little to do with her. The real demon was me, the one who had made a single phone call. The moment the meeting ended, she walked straight out of her office. I, meanwhile, leaned back in my chair like nothing had happened, lazily scrolling on my phone. On the screen was a match 3 puzzle game that looked incredibly dumb, as if the person who had wiped out $100 billion conglomerate with a snap of his fingers wasn't me. When I saw Willow come out, I looked up and asked lazily, "All done?" My tone was as casual as if I were asking, "Did you eat dinner yet?" Willow walked up to me and stared deeply at my face. The man in front of her was full of mysteries. Who exactly was he? How could an ordinary intern possess such terrifying hacking skills and business instincts? How did you do it? She finally asked the question weighing most heavily on her mind. I've got my own tricks, I shrugged, looking unfathomable. Of course, I wasn't about to tell her that I had casually short-sold Penguin Tech stock and made a bit of pocket money along the way. Not much, just a few $100 million or so. Looking at George's flippant, carefree demeanor, the shock in her heart slowly settled, replaced by something she had never felt before, a sense of security. Yes, security. Ever since taking over this massive family enterprise, she had lived every day amid schemes and betrayals, walking on thin ice. She trusted no one, but today, this man, with sheer ability alone, gave her a feeling that she had someone she could rely on, no matter what. "Thank you," Willow said softly, her voice carrying a trace of genuine warmth for the first time. "Hey, don't." I waved my hand. "I'm just doing my job for the money. Don't forget we signed a contract. This counts as exceeding my KPI. That means extra pay." Willow was amused by my money-grubbing attitude, though it was only the faintest curve of her lips. It was like melting ice and snow, breathtakingly beautiful. I froze. It was the first time I had ever seen this iceberg CEO smile. "You'll get your money." Willow returned to her usual composure and turned back toward her office. "Come in. I need to talk to you." I followed her inside. The office door closed once more. "Sit." I sat down and waited. "About Penguin Tech." Willow went straight to the point. "I won't ask how you did it. I just want to know, will this affect Orange Group? Or, you?" "Relax. Everything's clean. No one can trace it," I said confidently. I was joking if anyone thought otherwise. I had used overseas virtual servers with multiple layers of hops. Even a god wouldn't be able to track it down. "That's good." She nodded, visibly relieved. Then she opened a drawer and took out the small white pill bottle I had seen once before. She poured out 2 pills and swallowed them dry, without water. After that, her complexion looked even paler. I couldn't help asking, "What illness do you actually have?" I had looked it up earlier today as well, but whether it was hospital systems or the Drug Administration database, there was no information on that medication at all. It was as if the drug didn't exist in this world. Willow's body, like mine, was full of mysteries. At my question, her body stiffened noticeably. She raised her head, her eyes instantly sharp and cold. "I told you, don't ask questions you shouldn't ask, but I'm your kept man." I spread my hands innocently. "Isn't it normal to worry about your health? Otherwise how am I supposed to play the part convincingly?" The logic was flawless. Willow looked at me and fell silent. The air in the office seemed to solidify. After a long while, she finally spoke, her voice heavy with exhaustion and weakness. "It's a hereditary disease. It flares up once a month. When it happens, I experience hallucinations, emotional instability, and sometimes, temporary memory loss. This medicine can only suppress it for now. It can't cure it. My heart sank. No wonder she needed a scapegoat. No wonder she was always so cold, keeping everyone at arm's length, because she was afraid that her illness would be discovered by outsiders. Afraid that during an episode she might do something irreversible. Beneath that powerful exterior of hers was a soul that was fragile and painfully lonely. So, that's why you brought me here. Yes. Willow looked at me, her gaze complicated. I need someone who can stay by my side when my illness acts up, someone who can restrain me, and I also need someone to help me keep this secret, because within the company, there are many people waiting for me to fall. I thought of that mole. Stand still. I understood. All this time, Willow had been fighting alone. Why should I trust you? She suddenly shot back. The ability you showed today was terrifying. How do I know you weren't sent by someone else? Another, stand still. I smiled. It's simple. I looked at her and said each word clearly. Because your illness, I might be able to cure it. Chapter 7. What did you say? Willow suddenly shot up from her chair. The movement was so abrupt that she knocked over the glass of water on the desk. The cup hit the floor and shattered into pieces. But she didn't care at all. She stared at me, her beautiful eyes filled with disbelief, and a glimmer of something she herself hadn't noticed yet. Something called hope. You said, you can treat my illness. Her voice trembled slightly with excitement. This disease was like a curse, haunting her family for generations. She had searched the entire world for renowned doctors and used the most advanced medical technologies available. Every answer she received was the same. No cure, only waiting for death. And now, this man of unknown origin was saying that he could treat it. How was that even possible? I didn't say I could cure it. I corrected her carefully. I said maybe, but that's still better than just waiting to die like you are now, isn't it? George's words were blunt, brutal, even, but they struck her at her weakest point. She slowly sat back down, her body sinking weakly against the back of the chair. Yeah, no matter how bad it got, could it really be worse than this? What are your conditions? She quickly regained her composure, reverting to her sharp business instincts. She didn't believe in free lunches. Given the abilities this man had shown, he could obtain anything he wanted in this world. So why help her? Conditions. Of course there are conditions. I smiled and raised 2 fingers. First, help me deal with that vice president named Stand Still. I've got a bit of OCD. I don't like flies buzzing around inside the company. It's disgusting. A flash of cold sharpness passed through her eyes. Stand Still was a veteran executive left behind by her father. He had deep roots in the company and many allies. She had wanted to get rid of him for a long time, but had never found the right opportunity. Fine. She agreed without hesitation. As long as you can provide proof that he's the insider, I can kick him out immediately. Proof? That's easy. I snapped my fingers. I'll send it to your email in a bit. And the second condition? She pressed. The second one. I rubbed my chin, looked at her, and suddenly broke into a grin. I haven't thought of it yet. I'll put it on credit for now. She was so annoyed by my flippant attitude that she was momentarily speechless. Something this important, and I was saying I hadn't thought it through yet. All right, enough with the you, I said, standing up and stretching lazily. It's quitting time for today. Oh, right, since I'm your keptman and your personal doctor, starting tomorrow I'll be moving into your place. Makes it easier to monitor your condition at any time. No problem. Right. With that, without waiting for her answer, I turned and walked straight out of the office. She stared at my departing back, stunned for a long moment before it finally sank in. That bastard. He actually dared to give her orders. And he even wanted to move in and live with her. Her cheeks warmed uncontrollably, a faint flush spreading across her face. The next day, I officially moved into Willow's villa, and within Orange Group, an earthquake erupted. At the morning's routine executive meeting, CEO Willow, in front of everyone, directly slammed down a set of ironclad evidence. The proof clearly showed that Vice President Stand Still, over the past 3 years, had repeatedly leaked company secrets to the competitor Penguin Tech, causing losses totaling hundreds of millions. Stand Still was taken away on the spot by security and handed over to the judicial authorities. As for his faction, those cronies under him, she wiped them out cleanly with thunderous decisiveness. The entire Orange Group was shaken to its core. Everyone was terrified by her ruthless, resolute methods. And only then did they finally understand why Penguin Tech had gone bankrupt so suddenly the day before. So it turned out President Liu had already grasped the evidence long ago and was playing a much bigger game. For a time, her authority within the company reached an absolute peak. Meanwhile, the mastermind, the one pulling the strings behind all of this, was me. At that very moment, I was lying on the villa sofa, leisurely watching TV while eating fruit that Isabella had cut for me, relaxed like a retired old man. Mr. Wong. Miss. She really had Vice President stand still. Isabella came over with tea, shock still written on her face. Yeah, he got what he deserved, I replied without even looking up. Isabella looked at me, her gaze growing even more reverent. This young man was terrifying. Without a sound, he had helped Miss eliminate her greatest hidden threat. In the evening, Willow returned. There was an unmistakable trace of fatigue on her face, but her eyes were brighter than before. Having pulled out the nail that was stand still, she felt the entire company breathe easier. Back, I greeted her like the master of the house. Isabella made your favorite, steamed perch. Go wash your hands and eat. She looked at my overly familiar attitude and almost laughed, but held it back. She realized that she was starting to get used to having someone like this at home. At the dinner table, the atmosphere was unusually warm. Oh, right, I said while gnawing on a rib, my words slightly muffled. Isn't there a quarterly review meeting at the company tomorrow, the one all managers and above have to attend? Yes, why? Willow sipped her soup gracefully. Tomorrow, I smiled mysteriously. There's going to be a good show. She was puzzled, but didn't ask further. By now, she had begun to trust me unconditionally. The next day, Orange Group Auditorium. The quarterly review meeting was underway. Willow sat at the very center of the stage, her expression icy. I sat beside her in my capacity as the CEO's special assistant. Below us were several hundred mid- and senior-level managers, packed densely together. The meeting proceeded smoothly. Just as it was about to conclude, a discordant voice suddenly rang out. A middle-aged man sitting in the front row stood up. He was the newly appointed marketing director, Tim Unlucky, a close confidant personally promoted by Stand Still. During the purge, he had survived by hiding deeply enough. President Lou, I have a question, Tim Unlucky shouted, looking at Willow with a hint of provocation in his eyes. Speak, she replied coolly. I'd like to ask. Tim Unlucky pointed at me, his voice calm but loud enough for the entire hall to hear. What qualifications does this assistant Wong, sitting beside you, actually have to occupy that seat? He's a newly arrived intern, no seniority, no achievements. Just because of his personal relationship with you, he gets to rocket to the top overnight and stand above those of us who've worked ourselves to the bone for this company. Is that fair to all of us? His words were highly inflammatory. Instantly, they resonated with many people below. Plenty had long been unhappy with George. Why him? Just because George was born lucky and good-looking. The auditorium buzzed with discussion. Many eyes turned toward me with open hostility. This was a public challenge. Tim Unlucky was making a power play, a direct attempt to force the issue. All eyes shifted to Willow, waiting to see how she would handle the situation. However, before she could speak, I slowly picked up the microphone. Chapter 8, Director. Tim Unlucky, was it? My voice carried clearly through the microphone, echoing across the entire auditorium. I was still wearing that lazy, half-smiling expression, as if this public power play aimed at forcing Willow's hand was nothing more than a boring farce. When Tim Unlucky saw me speak up, a smug, icy smile curled at the corner of his mouth. So you finally can't hold it in anymore, kid? As long as you dare talk back, I've got 100 ways to make you humiliate yourself. That's right, it's me. Tim Unlucky lifted his chin, putting on a righteous facade. I'm just asking a fair question on behalf of all the hard-working employees in this company. Fair? I chuckled. What a wonderful word. Then let me ask you something too. Director Tim Unlucky, how exactly did your so-called performance results come about? Tim Unlucky froze. What do you mean by that? Nothing special. I leaned back in my chair and crossed my legs, relaxed as if I were sitting in my own living room. I'm just a little curious about that huge deal your marketing department signed last quarter, the one with the Siam Group. You claimed it brought in $30 million in profit and treated it like your greatest achievement, bragging about it all over the company. My gaze suddenly sharpened. But as far as I know, the chairman of Siam Group happens to be your wife's maternal uncle, doesn't he? And that deal, I continued calmly, not only did our company make zero profit, we actually lost $5 million in so-called channel fees. That money seems to have ended up in an overseas private account. I paused slightly. The account holder is your son, who just started college, right? My tone wasn't fast, nor was it aggressive, but every single word landed like a sledgehammer, smashing straight into Tim Unlucky's chest. His face turned ghostly pale in an instant. Cold sweat immediately soaked through his back. Impossible. He covered his tracks perfectly. How the hell does this kid know all of this? The audience below exploded. Holy shit, is this real? That's straight up betrayal. No wonder Tim Unlucky's kid was driving a Ferrari just 1 year after going abroad. This is filthy, using company money to line his own family's pockets. Shoo, keep it down. This is a massive bombshell. Amid the murmurs, Tim Unlucky's body began trembling uncontrollably. He pointed at me and shouted, trying to sound fierce but clearly panicking. You're slandering me. This is defamation. I'll sue you. Defamation. The smile on my face only deepened. Relax. Director Tim Unlucky. I'm not done yet. I took out my phone and connected it to the auditorium's big screen. One light tap. The next second, photo after photo, video after video, appeared clearly before everyone's eyes. There were pictures of Tim Unlucky drinking and laughing with the chairman of Siam Group in a private club. There were bank transfer records, clearly showing the $5 million fund flow. And there was even a video. Tim Unlucky in a KTV, arms wrapped around two young women, partying wildly. The content so explicit it made people gasp. In the video, Tim Unlucky's greasy face was stretched into a grin like a fully bloomed chrysanthemum. Come on, baby, you don't get it. He laughed. Our company's female CEO is just a figurehead. The whole company is really run by us old guys. Once I push her out, I'll be the king of this place. Boom. If earlier there had only been suspicion, now it was a smoking gun. Irrefutable proof. The entire hall fell into dead silence. Everyone was stunned by the indecent images on the screen and those outrageously arrogant words. This Tim Unlucky, not only corrupt and rotten to the core, with a chaotic private life, had even dared to dream of usurping power. The audacity was unbelievable. Willow's expression had grown so cold it felt like frost could be scraped off her face. She stared at Tim Unlucky on the screen, murderous intent surging in her eyes. As for Tim Unlucky himself, the moment he saw that video, his mind went buzz, completely blank. It was over. All of it was over. His legs gave out, and with a thud, he collapsed straight onto the floor. No, that's not true. It's fake. It's photoshopped. He struggled weakly, making one last futile attempt. I put my phone away, picked up the microphone, and said calmly to the audience, "Everyone, does anyone still think I'm not qualified to sit in this seat? Does anyone still think the company needs this kind of veteran, this kind of performance?" Not a sound came from the crowd. Those who had previously echoed Tim Unlucky's words and harbored hostility toward George Wong now all lowered their heads, barely daring to breathe. You've got to be kidding. This assistant Wong wasn't some kept man or pretty boy at all. This was the damn Grim Reaper, holding the book of life and death. Whoever crossed him would suffer instant social death, erased beyond recovery. Terrifying. Security. At last, Willow's icy voice rang out from the stage. Drag this man out. Notify the legal department. I want him to rot at the bottom of a prison cell. Several guards rushed forward and, like dragging a dead dog, hauled away Tim Unlucky, his face ashen, his mouth still muttering "Please spare me," out of the auditorium. A farcical coup attempt ended in such a dramatic fashion. After this battle, George was completely deified within Orange Group. No one dared to question his position ever again. After the meeting ended, I followed Willow back to her office. "How did you get those things?" Willow looked at me, her gaze complicated. She knew I was capable, but she hadn't imagined my abilities were already at such an unfathomable, almost supernatural level. "I told you, I don't like flies buzzing around inside the company." I shrugged. "So last night, I casually checked everyone at director level and above, and turns out, there are quite a few who aren't clean." I handed my phone to Willow. On it was a long list of names. After each name were detailed pieces of evidence: embezzlement, corruption, abuse of power. Willow stared at the list, her hands trembling slightly. She hadn't expected the company she had built with her own hands to be rotting from the inside to this extent. If not for George, the consequences would have been unimaginable. "These people, I'll deal with all of them." She took a deep breath, then looked at me with eyes full of gratitude. "George, thank you, truly. Here we go again." I waved my hand. "I already told you, this is paid work. If you really want to thank me, then hurry up and settle my consultation fee." Consultation fee. Willow froze. I pointed at her. "Your illness. I'm starting treatment today." Chapter 9. Night. Inside the study of Willow's villa, the atmosphere was heavy. I sat at the desk, a specially modified laptop placed in front of me. On the screen was pure darkness, except for lines of green code scrolling rapidly across it. Willow sat quietly on the sofa nearby, holding a cup of hot tea. Her gaze, however, never once left my back. She was nervous. In all her years, this was the first time she had completely placed her fate in someone else's hands. And that someone was a man she had known for less than a week. All done. After who knew how long. I finally stopped typing and let out a long breath. I turned my chair around, looked at Willow, and said, "Come here." Willow set down her teacup and walked over. "What is this?" she asked, staring at the extremely complex 3D model on the screen, something resembling a fusion of human meridians and brain structures, clearly confused. "This," I pointed at the densely packed red points flickering across the model, "is your illness. More precisely, it's not really an illness, but rather, a kind of genetic shackle." "A genetic shackle?" Willow frowned. It was the first time she had ever heard such a term. "Yes." My expression grew serious. "Simply put, A very special virus code was artificially implanted into your family's genes. Most of the time, this code lies dormant, but at regular intervals, it activates. Once activated, it violently attacks your central nervous system, causing hallucinations, emotional instability, and memory disorder. And every single attack consumes a massive amount of your life force. That's why people in your family generally don't live very long. Am I right? Willow's face instantly turned deathly pale. Every word George said was spot on. Her grandfather, her father, both had died of this strange illness before reaching 50. She had always believed it was a family curse. She never imagined it was man-made. Who did this? Her voice was icy to the bone, filled with overwhelming hatred. No idea. I shook my head. This genetic code is extremely ancient and incredibly sophisticated. With current technology, it would be impossible to create. Maybe one of your ancestors offended someone they never should have. Willow's body swayed, and she nearly lost her balance. This truth hit her far too hard. A warm hand steadied her arm just in time. I said calmly, "Don't panic. Since I can find the cause, I naturally have a solution." My voice wasn't loud, but it carried a reassuring strength. Willow looked up at me. Under the light, George's profile was sharp and well-defined. Those eyes that always carried a hint of laziness were now filled with confidence and focus. For no reason at all, her heart settled. "So, what do we do?" she asked. "It's simple." I pointed at the 3D model on the screen. "I'm going to write a new piece of antivirus code and implant it into your body to completely wipe out those viruses. The process might be a bit painful. Can you endure it?" "I can," Willow answered without hesitation. Compared to death, a little pain was nothing. "Good," I nodded. "Then go to your bedroom. Lie down on the bed, relax, and don't think about anything." Willow did as told and walked into her bedroom. I took a deep breath, pulled out a piece of equipment from a case, something highly futuristic, shaped like a helmet, and followed her inside the room. Willow's bedroom was spacious. Its decor, like her personality, was minimalist and cool-toned. The air carried the same faint, chilly fragrance that always lingered around her. She was already lying on the bed, eyes closed. Her long eyelashes trembled slightly, betraying the unrest in her heart. I gently placed the helmet onto her head. Then I took out another identical helmet and put it on myself. "Remember," my voice traveled directly into her mind through the helmet's internal communicator. "No matter what happens, don't resist my consciousness. I'm going to enter your mental world." Willow responded softly. I pressed a button on the helmet. Bzzz. A faint buzzing sound echoed. The next second, both of our consciousnesses plunged into darkness. When Willow opened her eyes again, she found herself standing in a pure white, boundless space. There was nothing here, only endless white, and endless loneliness. "Where is this?" she asked, confused. "This is the deepest layer of your subconscious, your mental core." My voice came from behind her. She turned around and saw me standing not far away, smiling at her. Don't be afraid." I walked over and naturally took her hand. "I'm here." George's hand was warm, so warm that Willow's heart, cold for more than 20 years, felt a trace of warmth for the very first time. At that moment, the pure white space suddenly began to shake violently. Hideous, blood-red cracks tore open across the sky. Countless red light particles poured out from those cracks, gathering together into a gigantic, grotesque monster that let out a soundless roar toward them. "So this is the manifestation of that genetic shackle." Willow stared at the monster, her face pale, her body trembling uncontrollably. It was fear born from the depths of her soul. She felt as if her consciousness was about to be swallowed whole by that evil presence. "Don't be afraid," my voice rang out again. I pulled Willow behind me and stood alone in front of the terrifying monster. "It's just a tiny bug." I looked at the creature, the corner of my mouth curling into a disdainful smile. "And it dares to act wild in front of me." The moment the words fell, behind me, a vast star sea composed of countless golden lines of code suddenly emerged. That sea of code was brilliant, profound, as if it contained the very truth of the universe itself. Golden light flooded the entire white space, and illuminated Willow's face, filled with shock and fascination. She stared at the man standing in front of her, blocking everything like a god, and suddenly, a thought surfaced in her mind, one so absurd that even she herself felt it was ridiculous. Maybe, keeping this man by her side for the rest of her life, wouldn't be so bad after all. Chapter 10. The battle inside the mental world was far more intense than anyone could have imagined. That red monster, the physical manifestation of the genetic shackle, seemed endless. Again and again, I shattered it with golden code, only for it to regroup again and again. Willow could feel George's breathing growing heavier. Fine beads of sweat seeped from his forehead. Clearly, maintaining this kind of high-intensity mental confrontation was an enormous drain even for him. "George, maybe we should stop." Willow's voice carried a trace of worry and reluctance. "Shut up," I barked without turning around. When it comes to a woman's illness, if a man says it'll work, then it will work. Stop talking. The words were rough, even harsh, but in Willow's heart, a warm current surged. This man was always like this, spouting the crudest lines, yet doing the gentlest things. Found it, your core. Suddenly, my eyes lit up. In the brief instant between the monster's countless reconstructions, I finally locked onto something hidden at the deepest level, a minuscule core of code, shrouded in black aura. Now, I roared. Behind me, the golden sea of code instantly condensed into an indestructible sword, carrying a world-destroying momentum. It pierced viciously toward that black core. No. The monster let out its final, despairing howl. Boom. The black core shattered on the spot. The entire white space was instantly purified by golden light. The hideous red monster dissolved into countless points of starlight and vanished completely. Everything returned to calm. My body swayed, my face turning slightly pale. George. Willow rushed forward and caught me. I'm fine. I waved my hand and grinned. Just a bit tired. Guess I haven't done this kind of heavy labor in too long. Feeling a little weak. Seeing me put on a brave front, Willow felt both heartache and amusement. She reached out and gently wiped the sweat from my forehead. The motion was so natural, so tender. I froze. Willow froze too. Their eyes met, and the atmosphere suddenly grew ambiguous. Ahem. I was the first to react, coughing awkwardly. Well, the virus is cleared. We should head back out. With that, I snapped my fingers. A powerful force tugged at both of our consciousnesses, pulling us back into the real world. Inside the bedroom, Willow and I removed the devices from our heads at the same time. Outside the window, dawn was already breaking. Without realizing it, an entire night had passed. How do you feel? I asked, looking at her. Willow closed her eyes and carefully sensed her body. Unprecedented lightness, the cold, gnawing pain that had clung to her mind for years, like a parasite burrowed into bone, was completely gone. In its place was a warm, powerful vitality, slowly flowing through every part of her body. She knew it. She was healed, completely healed. She opened her eyes. For the first time, moisture shimmered in those eyes that were always covered in frost. Thank you. She looked at me, her voice slightly choked. This time, the words were utterly sincere. I told you. No need to thank me. I stood up and stretched my stiff body. Just remember to settle my consultation fee. I'm going to sleep. I'm exhausted. With that, I yawned and walked out of the bedroom. Willow watched my retreating figure. At last, her tears slipped free. They were tears of joy, and also, tears of gratitude. The next few days passed peacefully. After Willow's illness was cured, she seemed completely revitalized. Her complexion glowed, and her work efficiency became terrifyingly high. Under her leadership, Orange Group swept away its previous decline and began expanding aggressively in the business world with an unprecedented momentum. As for me, I reverted to my true couch potato nature. Every day at the company, I drank tea, read the news, and occasionally accompanied Willow to public events, playing the part of a loving couple. Our relationship, too, began to change subtly amid this strange kind of coexistence. Neither of us said anything outright, but everyone in the company could feel it. The way President Liu looked at Assistant Wang was becoming more and more off. That wasn't the look of a boss toward a subordinate. That was clearly the look of a woman gazing at her own man. There was tenderness, reliance, and even a trace of something she herself hadn't noticed yet. Love. That day, the company was scheduled to sign a contract with an important overseas client. The venue was a 5-star hotel in the city center. Willow brought me along with several executives, and we arrived at the hotel ahead of time. The signing ceremony was to be held in the top-floor conference hall. The group entered the elevator together. The elevator doors slowly closed. The numbers began to climb. Just as the elevator reached the 30th floor, suddenly, clang! A loud crash. The entire elevator jolted violently, and all the lights went out in an instant. The elevator stopped. What's going on? The elevator malfunctioned. Panic erupted inside. In the darkness, my eyes instantly sharpened. This wasn't a normal malfunction. I smelled danger. Immediately, I pulled Willow behind me, shielding her with my body. Don't be afraid. I'm here. My voice wasn't loud, but it was like a stabilizing anchor, instantly calming the flustered Willow. At that moment, a processed, hoarse voice came through the elevator's emergency communication system. President Liu, Mr. Wang, welcome to the final stage I've prepared for you. Now, the game begins. There is a bomb inside the elevator. You have 10 minutes. Enjoy yourselves. Hee 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 hee. That chilling laughter echoed through the cramped elevator space. Every heart sank to the bottom. This was a trap. A deadly trap. Chapter 11. A bow bomb. Help. I don't want to die. Inside the pitch-black elevator car, the sinister laughter hadn't even faded when several company executives completely collapsed. Terrified screams and sobs instantly filled the cramped space. Fear was contagious. Even Assistant Chan, who was usually calm and composed, had gone pale, his back pressed against the elevator wall, trembling uncontrollably. Only 2 people remained composed. Everyone shut up. A cold, sharp command cut through the chaos like ice water poured over their heads, instantly silencing the scene. It was Willow. Her voice wasn't loud, but it carried unquestionable authority. In the darkness, no one could see her expression, yet everyone instinctively stopped crying. Panic won't solve anything, she said calmly. It will only waste the little time we have left. I nodded approvingly. No wonder she could run a multi-billion-dollar corporation. This kind of composure was far beyond ordinary people. Exactly, my voice followed, carrying a strange calming power. Everyone relax. If the sky falls, our President Liu will hold it up. Besides, I paused, and my tone suddenly turned light. It's just a bomb. What's the big deal? Everyone looked utterly confused. Bro, this is a bomb. People die from this stuff. Why are you talking like you're going out to buy groceries? George, do you have a way? Willow accurately found my hand in the darkness. Her palm was icy, drenched in cold sweat. Clearly, she wasn't as calm as she appeared. Don't be afraid. I squeezed her hand gently. Leave it to me. I pulled my phone out of my pocket. The faint glow of the screen lit up my face, calm to an almost unsettling degree. Everyone, please turn on your phone flashlights and help me illuminate the elevator's top control panel, I instructed. The executive's legs were weak, but survival instincts made them comply. Hands shaking as they did, several beams of light converged on the top of the elevator car. With one arm wrapped around Willow's waist, I lightly pushed off the wall with a single foot. Like a nimble wildcat, I climbed up silently, grabbing the edge of the ceiling with one hand and hanging steadily in midair. The shocking sight left everyone below stunned. This isn't human. Is this Spider-Man? Ignoring their astonishment, I used my free hand to pry open the control panel cover on the ceiling, revealing a dense mess of multicolored wires inside, and right in the middle of them lay an object strapped with a red digital countdown timer. Tick, tick. Bright red numbers jumped rapidly on the screen. 8:42. He. It's useless. The hoarse voice came through the communicator again, filled with a cat-and-mouse mockery. This bomb is custom-made. The wire colors randomize every day. Cut the wrong one, and we all go up in fireworks. Oh, and just a friendly reminder, I've completely jammed the elevator signal. Your phones are bricks right now. Don't bother trying to call for help. The moment he finished speaking, the fragile hope that had just ignited was crushed again, plunging everyone back into despair. But I acted as if I hadn't heard a thing. Hanging there with one hand, I raised my phone with the other and rapidly snapped several photos of the tangled wiring. Then my fingers began dancing wildly across the screen, so fast that only afterimages could be seen. Cascades of data streamed across the display like a waterfall. Signal jamming. The corner of my mouth curled into a disdainful smile. Child's play. For me, there was no network in this world that I couldn't connect to. Just 30 seconds. Done. The signal bars on my phone jumped from 0 to a full 5G in an instant. I didn't call the police. I didn't start defusing the bomb. Instead, I opened a video call. The call connected to Willow's phone. Wife, look at me. I turned my phone's camera toward myself. In the darkness, that handsome face of mine was unusually clear under the faint light. I even flashed a peace sign at the camera. Everyone inside the elevator was stunned. Willow was stunned too. Bro. There were barely 7 minutes left before the bomb went off. And you're opening a video call to flirt right now. We're about to die. George, Willow was both anxious and furious. Shoo. I made a silencing gesture toward her, then mouthed a single word without sound. Trust me. For some reason, seeing the confidence in my eyes, Willow's wildly pounding heart actually calmed down, miraculously. She took a deep breath and nodded. Meanwhile, the mysterious man on the other end of the communicator was clearly thrown completely off by my absurd move. Why what are you doing? Live streaming, can't you tell? I said with a grin. I've even got the title ready. Couch Potato Employee and My Iceberg CEO, Our Final Romance. This thing's guaranteed to go viral. Why you're insane. I'm not insane. My smile vanished instantly, my gaze turning ice cold. The insane one is you. You really think you cleaned up after yourself? 1 hour ago, you used an overseas virtual number to plant a backdoor into the hotel's security system. That number went through 17 proxy jumps, but unfortunately for you, the final login IP was located in an abandoned factory in South City. Oh, right. You sabotaged the cameras inside that factory beforehand, but you seem to have forgotten something. 300 meters across the street, there's a traffic camera. 15 minutes ago, it clearly captured a black Honda Civic driving into that area. The license plate was a 884XJ. That car is registered to someone named Martin Bai. Mr. Bai, I said calmly. Am I right? Each sentence landed like a massive hammer, smashing straight into the mysterious man's mind. The communicator fell into deathly silence. Only heavy, ragged breathing remained. He was clearly terrified. He couldn't comprehend how his supposedly flawless plan had been completely exposed, down to the last detail, in just a few minutes. Now, my voice dropped, sounding like a demon from the abyss. The rules of the game have changed. I'm giving you 1 minute. Deactivate the bomb immediately. Otherwise, you, and the entire family behind you, will vanish from this world. Completely. I guarantee it. Chapter 12. Beep. A soft sound rang out. At the top of the elevator, the bomb's ticking stopped abruptly. The red numbers on the screen froze at 103, and then went completely dark. From the communicator came Martin's furious, panicked roar, mixed with the sound of frantic footsteps fleeing in all directions. Then, silence. Inside the elevator car, everything was quiet. Everyone was still trapped in overwhelming shock, unable to process what had just happened. What just happened? In just a few minutes, a crisis that should have meant certain death was resolved. And in such an utterly inconceivable way. They stared at the young men who lightly dropped down from the ceiling, their eyes no longer filled with mere awe. They were looking at a god. Ding! The elevator lights came back on. The car resumed its smooth upward movement. Everything returned to normal, as if that life or death countdown had been nothing more than an illusion. Naturally, the signing ceremony was cancelled. The hotel had descended into complete chaos, police and security everywhere. Under Assistant Chan's arrangements, Willow and I were escorted out through a secret passage at the first possible moment. Inside the car, the atmosphere was suffocatingly heavy. Willow kept her head lowered, saying nothing. Her body trembled slightly, not from fear, but from anger, and from a sorrow born of being deceived for 100 years. The family. That surname was familiar to her. It was recorded in the Liu family genealogy. A century ago, Martin's family had once been a commercial titan, standing shoulder to shoulder with the Liu family. But later, in a decisive business war, they were crushed by the Liu family's ancestors through ruthless means. From then on, they declined rapidly and vanished from history. She had always believed it was just an ordinary tale of corporate rivalry. She never imagined that behind it lay such a vicious bloodline curse. George. She lifted her head and looked at me, her eyes rimmed with red. My grandfather, my father, they didn't die of illness, did they? They were slowly drained to death by this curse. Seeing her fragile yet stubborn expression, my heart tightened for no reason at all. I reached out and gently pulled her into my arms. It's all over now. My voice was soft, gentle. From now on, you have me. Willow's body stiffened for a moment. Then, the strength she had held onto for more than 20 years finally collapsed completely. She buried her head deep in my chest and cried out loud like a wronged child. All the pain, grievance, and loneliness she had suppressed for so long poured out at once. I didn't speak. I simply held her quietly, letting her tears soak into my clothes. I knew this woman had been carrying far too much. And from now on, what I needed to do was help her set those burdens down, one by one. Back at the villa, Willow had cried herself out and fallen into a deep sleep in my arms. I carefully carried her to the bed and tucked her in. Looking at her tear-streaked sleeping face, my gaze softened completely. I bent down and gently pressed a kiss to her forehead. Then I turned and walked out of the bedroom. My eyes instantly turned icy cold. I took out my phone and dialed an encrypted number. Hey, it's me. Help me look into someone, Martin, and the entire family behind him. I want everything, all their information, all their dirt, all of it. The deadline. Before dawn. I hung up. Standing in front of the floor-to-ceiling window, I looked out at the deep night outside. A flash of killing intent flickered in my eyes. You dared to touch my woman. I don't care what kind of century-old family you are. I don't care what blood feud you're carrying. I only know one thing. You all have to die. Dawn broke. A thick dossier on the Martin family had already been sent to my phone via encrypted email. I hadn't slept all night. I spent the entire night carefully reading through the file from beginning to end. This family was indeed no simple matter. After being defeated by the Liu family a century ago, they had gone underground, building a massive shadow empire spanning both the gray and black worlds. Smuggling, money laundering, intelligence trafficking, every kind of evil imaginable. And Martin was the current heir of this underground empire. From childhood, he had been indoctrinated with hatred toward the Liu family. His lifelong goal was to destroy Orange Group and make the Liu family pay in blood. This bombing attempt had only been his first move. If I hadn't stopped it in time, his next step would have been to mobilize all his resources and launch an all-out, devastating commercial assault on Orange Group. Want to play? I looked at the information on my phone, the corner of my mouth curling into a cruel smile. Then I'll play with you, properly. I sat down in front of the computer. My fingers began dancing across the keyboard once more. A silent war quietly ignited in the world of data. This time, I wasn't here to defend, nor was I here to counterattack. I was here to crush them completely. I was going to drag this century-old cancer lurking in the shadows out into the sunlight, and rip it out by the roots. Just then, the bedroom door opened. Willow walked out. She had changed into a sharp, professional outfit, though a trace of fatigue still lingered on her face. Her eyes had regained their usual firmness and razor-sharp clarity. The Ice Queen was back. No, stronger than ever, because now, standing behind her, was a man she could entrust everything to without hesitation. Did you find them? She asked, stopping behind me and looking at the rapidly scrolling data on the screen. Yeah, I nodded. Just a family of rats hiding in the gutter. What are you planning to do? Didn't you always want Orange Group to completely clean itself up? I turned to her and smiled. To become a truly respectable, clean international corporation. I'll give you a gift big enough to make Orange Group go down in history. Chapter 13, 9 a.m. Orange Group, top floor strategic conference room. All of the highest-ranking directors and shareholders were present. The atmosphere was tense to the extreme. Yesterday's bomb attack at the hotel had been suppressed and never exposed by the media. But every business tycoon sitting here had learned the news through their own channels. They had come today for one thing only, an explanation. Who had the Orange Group offended? And could President Willow still guarantee the company's safety and stability? President Liu, regarding what happened yesterday, you must give us an explanation. An elderly, white-haired director was the first to launch an attack. Our investments are built on the foundation of safety. That's right. If even personal safety can't be guaranteed, we don't mind withdrawing our capital immediately. Another major shareholder echoed him. For a moment, outrage filled the room. Willow sat in the main seat, her face dark and expressionless, saying nothing. As for me, I sat beside her as if nothing were happening, leisurely sipping my tea, as though this forced confrontation against Willow had nothing to do with me at all. Just as the atmosphere in the conference room was about to spiral out of control, I finally set my teacup down. Gentlemen, please calm down. My voice wasn't loud, yet it clearly cut through all the noise. Everyone's gaze instantly focused on me. I understand that everyone here is deeply concerned about the company's future. I stood up and walked to the massive projection screen in the center of the conference room, connecting my phone to it. Before giving you an explanation, I'd like to invite you all to watch a live broadcast. A live broadcast. The crowd exchanged puzzled looks, completely confused. My finger tapped lightly on the phone screen. The next second, the projection screen flickered. What appeared was not a company report, nor a project proposal. It was a collection of surveillance feeds. More than 100 different surveillance screens filled the entire display. Cargo docks at ports, smuggling routes along the border, hidden underground casinos, luxurious private clubs. Every single screen was playing scenes of shocking, illegal transactions, weapons, drugs, cultural relics, and even human trafficking. What is this? All the big shots present were utterly stunned. They were all seasoned veterans of the business world, and at a glance they could tell what was on the screen was ironclad criminal evidence. Any single clip leaking out would be enough to trigger an overwhelming storm across society. My voice rang out like that of a judge from hell, cold, devoid of any emotion, are the century-old family business of our friend from yesterday, Mr. Martin, and the family behind him. And now, I paused, the corner of my mouth curling into a cold arc. I will represent justice and deliver the final judgment upon them. The moment the words fell, my finger gently pressed the enter key on my phone screen. In an instant, the same thing happened on every surveillance feed. Sirens wailed from all directions, piercing the sky. Fully armed special police units descended like divine soldiers, storming into every transaction site. Arrests, gunfire, screams, an unprecedented large-scale anti-crime operation swept through the entire underground world, unfolding simultaneously across the country. Inside the conference room, everyone was rendered speechless by the shocking scene before them. They stared at the young man standing before the screen, as if he were a god, destroying a century-old underground empire with a mere flick of his fingers. In their hearts, only endless fear and awe remained. This was no longer a business tactic. This was the power of a god. And this was not the end. I operated on my phone a few more times. The image on the screen switched again. This time, what appeared was the back-end system of a massive multinational bank. An account belonging to the By Family Foundation was clearly displayed on it. The balance of the account was a staggering astronomical figure, so long that one could barely count how many zeros it had. These are the ill-gotten gains they have accumulated over 100 years, I said calmly. Then, in front of everyone, I began to operate. Transfer, recipient, National Charity Federation, amount, all. Under the stunned gazes of the crowd, that astronomical number was wiped to zero in just a few seconds. After finishing all this, I put away my phone. as if I had merely done something utterly insignificant. I turned around, looked at the directors and shareholders who had completely turned to stone, and smiled faintly. Now, is that explanation sufficient? The Orange Group will not only be in no danger, it will also gain unprecedented reputation and support for assisting the state in cracking down on crime. As for your investments, I paused, my gaze sweeping across every single person. Is there still anyone who wants to withdraw now? The conference room fell into dead silence. Withdraw investment? Are you kidding? Right now, all they wanted was to cling tightly to President Liu and to this godlike Wang. This wasn't a company at all, this was practically an invincible aircraft carrier. No, no more. We fully support President Liu's leadership. Assistant Wang, no. President Wang. President Wang is brilliant. The directors who had been so aggressive just moments ago now stood up one by one, bowing and scraping, their faces plastered with ingratiating smiles. A coup attempt was once again effortlessly defused by me, but this time in an even more shocking manner. Willow looked at the men beside her, this man who always brought her endless surprises and shocking. In her icy eyes, the love that could no longer be hidden had grown so intense it was almost tangible. She knew that she had already, completely, fallen. Chapter 14. 3 months later, the Orange Group had completely changed. For assisting the state in dismantling the century-old criminal organization known as the Bai family, Orange received the highest official commendations. Along with a series of unprecedented policy supports, the company's stock price soared all the way up, its market value directly tripling, vaulting it into the ranks of the few true commercial behemoths, not just domestically, but internationally as well. And Willow, the iron-fisted female CEO, became a genuine legend in the business world. Of course, even more legendary than she was the man by her side, the one known as the godlike assistant, George. Countless versions of his story circulated within the company. Some said he was a top-tier agent from a national secret department, sent to protect President Liu. Others claimed he was the heir of some reclusive elite family, merely experiencing ordinary life. Still others insisted he wasn't human at all, but a future robot equipped with artificial intelligence. But no matter which version it was, they all revolved around one core truth. That was, George was insanely powerful, so powerful that he had already surpassed the limits of human understanding. And he was President Liu's man. That point was beyond any doubt. Now, throughout the entire company, no one dared to call me a pretty boy behind my back anymore. Everyone addressed me respectfully as President Wang. As for me, though, I couldn't care less about any of it. I was still the same old couch potato, clocking in right on time every day, clocking out right on time. My greatest pleasures were staying in my office, researching all kinds of strange and bizarre cutting-edge tech, or teasing that CEO of theirs, who was icy as a mountain in front of outsiders, but in front of me, was becoming more and more like a little woman. Willow, that move was wrong. Use your ultimate, QWER combo. Wipe them out in one go. Why did you run up there and start auto-attacking again? My furious, exasperated roar echoed through the CEO's office. On the massive desk, 2 computers sat side by side. On their screens was a popular competitive game. Willow had her pretty face tense, fingers flying clumsily over the keyboard. The little character she controlled moved around stylishly, but her execution was utterly disastrous. I forgot which key my skills are on, she said, sounding a little aggrieved. I was completely speechless. I tossed my own mouse aside, reached over her, and grabbed the hand she had on the keyboard. Idiot. Watch closely. It's like this. My hand was large and warm, completely enveloping her smaller hand. Willow's body stiffened, and her cheeks flushed red in an instant. How could she still focus on the game? Her heart started pounding uncontrollably, thump, thump. Ever since that time, I'd been getting more and more fond of putting my hands on her, always finding all sorts of excuses to hold her hand, wrap an arm around her waist, and sometimes, even sneak a kiss. She said no with her mouth, but her body was far too honest. She enjoyed this feeling, the feeling of being protected and spoiled by me. Bang. In the game, guiding her hands, I executed a smooth, flowing combo and effortlessly secured a pentakill. Victory. Easy. Right, I said smugly, taking credit. Willow lowered her head, her voice so soft it was barely audible. I looked at her ears, so red they looked like they might drip blood, and couldn't help but laugh to myself. This woman was just unbearably adorable. I let go of her hand and leaned back into my chair, speaking as if it were an afterthought. Oh, right. That contract of ours, isn't it about to expire? Willow's body trembled violently. The contract, that 1-year secret employment and role-playing agreement that had bound the two of us together. Counting the days, there seemed to be only a few left. The atmosphere in the office instantly became delicate and subtle. Yes, the contract was expiring. And then what? Was George going to leave? At the mere thought of that possibility, Willow's heart felt as if it were being clenched hard by an invisible hand. It hurt. She didn't want that. She didn't want George to leave. George. She lifted her head, mustering the greatest courage of her life, looked straight at me, and said slowly, word by word, "Let's renew the contract." Renew. I raised an eyebrow. That'll cost extra. My market value isn't what it used to be. A monthly salary of $500,000 won't cut it anymore. How much do you want? Willow bit her lip and asked. I deliberately dragged out my words, watching how nervous she looked, then suddenly smiled. I stood up, walked over to her, and took something out of my pocket. It wasn't a check, nor was it a new contract. It was a small velvet box. I went down on one knee and opened it. Inside, a dazzling diamond ring lay quietly, radiating an eye-catching brilliance. Willow. I looked up at her face, frozen in shock and disbelief. My gaze had never been so serious, so sincere. I don't want your money. I only want you. Before, I only wanted to be a couch potato, because this world didn't give me anything worth caring about. But now, it's different, because now, I have you. So, are you willing to sign the contract for the rest of your life with me? Using this as the signing bonus, tears blurred Willow's vision once again, but this time, they were tears of happiness. She reached out her hand. Her voice trembled with a soft sob, yet it was incomparably firm. I'm willing. I smiled. I took the ring and slowly placed it onto her slender finger. Not too big, not too small, just right. I stood up and pulled her tightly into my embrace. Outside the window, the sunlight was perfect. On the desk, that yellowed employment contract was lifted gently by the breeze and drifted down onto the floor. Who needed it anymore?